guys, today I wanted to make a video about Graham Potter and Chelsea. Is he the future of Chelsea going forward? Now, I think Chelsea will probably give Potter until the end of the season. I can't see them sacking him before the end of the season because I don't see the point in it. Well, then again, with Todd Bowley, who knows? But for me, I don't think it makes much sense to sack him before the end of the season because you just then at the same conundrum with whoever you bring in, because whoever you bring in, and it's been reported to be that they are potentially lining up Roberto De Zerbi, Luis Enrique, and Zinedine Zidane as potential replacements. But whoever comes in, they're going to be faced with the same problem of it's a new squad who haven't played together much. There's no experience of playing with each other in that team, and there's no experience of working with the same manager, and you're back to where you were at the start of the season with Graham Potter first coming in. So I think you've got to give Potter till the end of the season just to try and get something, unless it goes horrifically badly, that is. And I mean, like, they you know, get close to relegation, and I doubt that's going to happen because there is a higher calibre of player within the Chelsea squad compared to lower down near the drop zone. So I can't see Chelsea getting relegated this season, and it feels strange having to say that, to be honest. But for me, I think they've just got to keep him until the end of the season, and I think it will work eventually because I think he is a good manager. It's just there's so many players coming in at the same time, and it was inevitably going to be a hard job for him. And the Bowley's taken this gamble very early on in his ownership with Chelsea in, you know, signing lots of high potential young players who in theory should eventually be sold for a profit once they have a good 2 or 3 years, 3, 4, 5 years at the club. And the reason that he's got them on these long contracts is that so that he can spread out fees over the coming years. But what that does obviously mean is that they're going to be a bit restricted in the next few years over what they can spend on transfers, because at the end of the day, the more you spread it out over the time, and they've spent a ridiculous amount. So they've spent something like 550 million in the past 9 months or so. So most of these players are on 8-year contracts. So divide that by 8, it's about 70 million. So that's 70 million a season for the next 8 years already spent. So you can't do that consistently for the next 8 years. If you can probably only do that for the next 2 years, and you know, so it's not sustainable. So that they are going to have to, you know, use the players they've got, unless they can sell them instantly. And the way they're performing, there is going to be a drop in value if Chelsea cannot get performances together. Because I mean, look at all the attacking players they've signed. Like, just since the start of the season, you got Raheem Sterling, Mykhailo Mudryk, Noni Madueke, Aubameyang, Fofana. There's loads of them. But if these play, and Chelsea have only scored something like 6 goals since November or something ridiculous. So if these players aren't scoring goals, then their value is inevitably going to drop. So it's going to be tough for them going forward. But I think you need someone like Graham Potter because he has a track record of improving young players, and that's wherever he's been, whether it be at Swansea, Brighton, or even in Sweden with Östersunds. Yeah, it was Östersunds, wasn't it? 'Cause they played Arsenal in the Europa League that one season. But you know, and the amount of players he, you know, signed for Brighton, and they were, you know, not trying to be harsh, but nobodies when he signed them, and he turned them into great players. Well, maybe not great, but very good players. Like, well, there are a few great ones, I guess. Alexis McAllister is a World Cup winner. Kaoru Mitoma looks like a very, well, I guess, even though he was signed by Brighton under Potter, it's more De Zerbi that's brought him into the first team. But you know what I mean? There's loads of them. Caicedo, Bissouma. No, Bissouma was signed under Houston. You get what I'm trying to say though. Cucurella, they'll all come out eventually. But yeah, there's been loads of, you know, successful players that Graham Potter has helped nurture and get through in first team football and help improve them. So it depends. I think they've got to be patient with it, because at this point it could genuinely be just that you've got so many players all thrown together, and it's different. And a lot of people point at the fact that the job that Steve Cooper did at Nottingham Forest last season and this season as well, when there was a lot of new players coming into his team. But I think that's different as well, because the players that Steve Cooper was dealing with are very different to the players that Graham Potter's dealing with. These are players that are going to be on huge wages in comparison to what Nottingham Forest will be paying, and they are under a lot more scrutiny, and there is a lot more expectation from them. Like if you look at the top players at Nottingham Forest who they've signed in the past year, I think you look at Remo Freuler, Morgan Gibbs-White, Dean Henderson maybe, he's been injured lately though, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here. Taiwo Awoniyi, I think throughout the season has given them a few goals, but these are not players who are, you know, people are looking at thinking that they need to set the world alight, whereas Chelsea, there is that expectation. So it's and that obviously is affected in the dressing room, that they've got, they're as well as working as well as a team, they've got to, there's almost more focus on the individual when it comes to the individual. The individual has more focus on himself, is what I'm trying to say, compared to the focus on the team. So I think it is dealing with a different set of players, and it's going to take time for Graham Potter to adapt to that himself, because it is something he hasn't dealt with before. So as well as all these players coming in, it is Graham Potter dealing with, you know, a new environment. So it was never going to be, you know, a completely smooth transition, I don't think. So I would give Graham Potter time, because I think Todd Boehly's gone too far into this project now to pull out. I know the Chelsea fans aren't happy with Graham Potter, but if I was a Chelsea fan right now, just thinking about it, I think with what's happened with Roman Abramovich, Chelsea unfortunately have just been dealt a bad hand in the situation. I mean, obviously with what Abramovich did for the club in the last 20 years, you know, I don't think Chelsea fans can complain about that too much, but in the last 12 months or so, they haven't been dealt a good hand. It's been a bit of a tough situation for the club. But with Todd Boehly coming in, it's hard to say, but I just feel as though things were always going to change for Chelsea, and when you get someone who wants to take a different approach to how the club is run, it's always going to be difficult. So it is just a time of change for Chelsea, and I think the more they do try and change, sometimes when you try and change absolutely everything, you're better off with just keeping things to see what works. Is it this, is it that, rather than just constantly changing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I think they need to keep going with Graham Potter just for a little bit longer, just to, you know, just to see if it does click. If in 12 months' time, Chelsea aren't going to be in a relegation zone, that they haven't got they haven't got a squad that's low enough quality to be that far down. So they haven't really got much to lose, if that makes sense. They're all, with the amount of financial spending they could do, with the size of the club, the money they get from just like, you know, having a massive fan base, sponsorships as well, they're never going to be far off. So I think it's not a, you know, it's not a urgent matter. I don't think it's not like the world's going to end for Chelsea if they don't improve like next week. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.